this second service on a great Sunday morning. Thank you for everything you're doing in here to change hearts, to get people to that place where they respond to you and then they move on, they discover their purpose, and they make a difference here in the church, in the community. God, we love you, and we thank you for another beautiful day. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Over the next few Sundays, I'll be speaking a sermon series to us called Dashboards, Checking the Gauges of Life. Now, your dashboards on your car, they all do the same thing. You look at your dashboard to tell how fast you're going. And some of you need to look at your speedometer a little more often, right? Especially as you're along 475 going up and down the road. Tell how fast you're going. You look at your dashboard to tell you how your fuel gauge is doing. You look at your dashboard to tell you how far you've gone. So that when you're in the car and the children ask you, Daddy, how much longer? You'll be able to tell them how far you've gone. Your dashboard is a quick way to look at what's going on inside your vehicle, whether it's a car, a van, or a truck of some kind. And it'll give you a snapshot as to how you're doing. Just like there are physical dashboards in your car, there are spiritual dashboards inside of our life. Those things that we can look at to give us a quick heads up about how we are doing. Now, if you owned a 1954 Chevy, this is what your dashboard might have looked like. How many of you would love to own a 1954 Chevy? If you owned a 1966 Mustang, this is what your dashboard might have looked like. Or if you owned a 1984 Ford F-150 pickup truck, this is what your dashboard may have looked like. Moving on a little bit further, if you owned a 2000 Honda, this is what your dashboard might have looked like. But if in your wildest dreams you owned a 2018 Tesla, this is what your dashboard might have looked like. Ooh, and you did the same thing the first service did. When the last picture came on, everybody said, ooh, that's cool. We're going to be giving away one of those next week in the 9 o'clock service. We've chosen not to pay Pastor Brian for a year and a half. I'm just kidding. We're not giving one of those away. But it's a really cool dashboard. You know, even though dashboards change over the season of life and the years when cars were making, they all do the same thing, right? You look at them and you get a quick glimpse of what you're going to be doing or what's going on in your vehicle. The Apostle Paul said to the church at Corinth in his second letter to the Corinthians, and he said these words, examine yourselves. Examine yourselves, and then that verse actually goes on to say, to make sure that you're in the faith. So he says there are times in life when we need to peel back, and we need to look on the inside, and we need to see how our gauges are doing on our spiritual dashboard. Personally, I have 10 different things that I look at and measure in my own life, and I'm just going to kind of open up my heart this morning and be a little bit transparent with you this morning. These are the things that I look at on my dashboard of life to gauge how is Joey doing. The first one is my faith life. How is my own spiritual walk? Am I giving out more than I'm taking in? Do I have enough in me to give to you in such a way that my spirit life is not depleted? My faith life. Number 2, my marriage and family life. Am I engaging Carla's heart as I should as a husband? Am I treating her like she's my very best friend? And even as I look at my family life, our children are grown and they're off with their own spouses now, but even as a dad from a distance, I ask myself, am I doing a good job still connecting with my children and maybe providing fatherly advice from a whole different degree of relationship? The third thing I gauge is my office life. Am I spending too much time at the office? Should I be at home more often, or should I be in the community more often? That's the thing I have to think about. Am I spending too much time here when I should be there? That's the third thing that I measure. The fourth thing that I measure is my computer life. Am I looking at my computer screen too much? Now, if it's your profession and part of what you have to do is your computer life, well, that might be a no-brainer for you. You have to look at your computer screen. But for me, It's just a part of what's in my life. Or am I looking at my phone too much? There are times when I put my phone down, especially at the house, after work is over. I'll turn it on silent. The vibrate will be on, but there are times I'll walk away from it. Because if you're like me, you like to know what's going on in life, and too often you're on your phone and you're checking Facebook and you're doing Instagram and you're checking your emails, and it's almost like there's no separation between your work life and your home life. And there have been times that I've been guilty of sitting in my own den and I'm looking at all the different social media. I'm snooping out what you guys are doing, wondering what my next sermon series should be. And sometimes I'll notice that Carla's on the other side of the room. And every now and then I'll get a glance. And I get, all right, sorry. That lets me know that I'm spending too much time in front of my screens. That was the fourth thing. The next thing is my ministry life. Am I constantly overcommitted in my ministry life? Number 6, my financial life. Are my finances in order? Am I prepared for retirement? Are we getting us to a place where we can give more to those we desire to give more, especially the church? Number 7, my social life. Do I have friends that I just enjoy hanging out with just for the sake of having fun? Number 8, my attitude life. Is my attitude consistently positive, or do I drift into that side of me which can so easily go pessimistic? How's my attitude life? Number 9, my creative life. Is my mind clear enough where I can think creatively, or is there too much stuff that's occupying my brain matter that I don't even have the space that I need to sit and think creatively for the church and for life? Number 10, my physical life. My physical life. Am I taking care of my body? Am I exercising on a regular basis? Am I eating right? Because if that gets messed up, a whole lot of other things gets messed up in life. Those are my 10. Now your dashboards might be different. Some of these things that I wrestle with and have to measure, you might not have to wrestle with. But I would encourage you to find your dashboards. Make your list of things that you go back to, and maybe on a monthly basis you look at these things and you examine yourself to see how you're doing. Now, we're going to take one of the gauges on our dashboard today, and we're going to look at it for the next few minutes. The one dashboard gauge that we're going to look at this morning is called the fuel level. It's that part of the car that if it's not full, if it's empty, nothing else works. I don't care if your battery works. I don't care if you got the greatest stereo in your car. If it doesn't have enough gas, nothing's coming on. Nothing's going anywhere if you don't have the right fuel in your car. And just like a car needs physical fuel, our spirits need spiritual fuel. Now, there's 3 things that we get our spiritual fuel from. I appreciate Pastor Brian's words this morning out of the story of Jehoshaphat, because they dovetail exactly into my sermon this morning. The 3 areas that we get our spiritual fuel from is, number 1, the Bible. Psalm 119, 105 says, I have hidden your word in my heart that I might not sin against you. But you know what? That's not the right verse that I put on the screen, but that's a pretty cool one too. Psalm 119, 105 says, the prayer, your word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Are we spending time in the word? The second way we get our spiritual fuel from is prayer. James chapter 5 and verse 16 says, the prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. The third way that we get our spiritual fuel from is from worship. Psalm 86, 9 and 10 says, all the nations you made will come and bow before you, Lord. They will praise your holy name. For you are great and you perform wonderful deeds. You alone are God. There are times when you and I need to worship just to simply remember how big and how awesome and how incredible our God is. You receive your spiritual fuel from those moments that you worship. When our fuel tank is filled up with these things, the overflow of those things in our life is peace, patience, love, hope, trust in God that he can do what he says he can do, and all of those things that are the fruit of the Spirit become active in our lives as long as our fuel gauge is full. Now, Isaiah has something very interesting to say about this whole concept of being full. In Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 31, Isaiah says, "But they who wait for the Lord will renew their strength. They will mount up with wings like eagles. They will run and not be weary. They will walk and not faint." We've heard that verse many times. Some of you probably have that verse memorized. But in your translation of the Bible that you're holding in your hand, whether it's a print Bible or a digital Bible, your version might be just slightly different when it comes to that word, wait. It's because that Hebrew word that is in that place for wait can be translated multiple different ways in our English. We did not have a perfect word in our English vernacular to fit that word, and so it can be translated wait. It can be translated hope. Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. It can be translated as those who look eagerly for the Lord will renew their strength. And there's another way that I really like how that word wait can be considered. It says the word linger. To linger. Those who linger with the Lord will renew their strength. But the problem is our lives are not geared to linger. We don't gear generally lingering time in our daily schedule. Because the life that you and I lead, it can be busy from the time the alarm clock goes off until the time our head hits the pillow at night. If there's kids in your house, the first thing you're doing is you're getting up and you're getting lunches ready and you're getting the kids dressed and you're getting everybody off to school, whether you're taking them, whether they're riding the bus. There's just stuff to do. You go to work, you come home, there's homework to be done, there's dinner to be made, and you know those rhythms. In the North American culture, we don't know how to linger real well. We don't know how to just hang out in the Lord's presence. And there are times during our worship services here that we will be in between songs. And there will be music playing, and there will be maybe someone singing lightly in the background. And it almost seems like, what are we doing? Where are we going with this song to this song? And those are lingering times. Those are times when we are just allowing the Lord to do inside of us what he needs to do. They that wait upon the Lord, those that linger with the Lord will renew their strength. If there's one thing that I can encourage all of us to do every day of our lives is to spend a certain portion of every day with the Lord. Every day, even Sunday. Sundays is easy not to, right? Sundays it's easy just to say, now the pastor's going to read the Bible for me. The worship team's going to worship for me. I'll do all that there. But even on Sundays, there's that time of quiet reflection when it's just between you and the Lord. Your daily time with the Lord. And you might say, Pastor Joe, that's kind of basic. I've been around church all my life, and these are things that I know, and, I've read these things on the web, and my parents told me these when I was little, and I get it. But the problem is even those, the simple things in life we get and understand, we can drift away from them. That's why that the great football coach Vince Lombardi of the Green Bay Packers years ago, he would, at the beginning of every football season, he would grab his football and he would point to it, and he would say, "Men, this is a football." Regardless of whether they won the Super Bowl the year before, the playoffs, whatever, regardless, every year started back with the basics. And we've been through summertime. Summertime's a busy and chaotic time where we're going here and going there, and now the rhythm of fall has begun to hit. School seasons have become into play, and life begins to seem to take more of a normal rhythm now that summertime is over. And the one thing that I want to encourage us to do, now that the summertime is over, I want us to get back into our rhythm, our normal rhythm of our quiet time with the Lord. The single most important thing you can do for your spiritual life is to spend time with Jesus every day. That's it. Time alone with the Lord. Here is what I fear for people in our North American culture. is that they live for Sunday and they live for Wednesday. Sunday morning we come to church and everything is grand. The music is powerful. The preaching is absolutely amazing. And we come to church and we experience the Lord's presence, and then come Sunday evening, Monday, Tuesday, we just feel like we get worn out spiritually. Whether it's on the job, whether it's at school, whether it's on the university campus, and by the time Wednesday comes around, we feel like we're dragging our spirits behind us, and we go, let me just get to church and get filled up one more time at church. And we come to church on Wednesday nights, and it's powerful. We have a Wednesday night prayer service that you should not miss. It's a powerful time of prayer. And so we come to church Wednesday night, we get filled back up again, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, feels like we get pounded spiritually. We feel like we're dragging everything behind us. And we think Saturday comes, Sunday's coming. Here's my desire as your pastor, that your Monday would be just as powerful as your Sunday. Your Tuesday would be just as powerful as your Sunday. Your Thursday will be just as powerful as Wednesday. Why? Because you are alone with your Creator, at least for a moment in time, every single day. Now, there's a time for husbands and wives when you're married to do devotions together and read the scriptures and pray together. I absolutely believe that. Carl and I do that often. But yet there's that time where I pull away and I get alone with the Lord every day. And I ask God, what is it? What is it that I need to become more like you? There's three things that I simply want to leave with you this morning about your individual time with the Lord. And to me, I said it just a second ago, but these are bedrock. These are foundational. There are some things in life that you will not be able to do if you don't do this. And that's number one. Have a certain time when you get alone with the Lord. Have a certain time. In the book of Mark, chapter 1 and verse 35, it says, very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left his house, and went out to a solitary place where he prayed. Now, I'm an early morning person. I love early mornings. I'm awake generally by 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't have to turn the alarm on. This morning I did because I didn't want to, by any chance, I didn't want to sleep in on this morning. Where's Pastor? I think he's still asleep. But I'm up, and that's why this Bible verse is probably one of my favorite Bible verses in the whole world, because I'm just saying if Jesus got up early, then everybody should get up early. I'm just saying. But he chose a time, and he marked it out, and he did it with rhythm. This is not the only time you see this referred to Christ. He did this over and over and over again. But regardless of where you make your time with Jesus, make it and keep it. I want to encourage you to get your phone out, get your computer app out, and I want you to put on your calendar time with Jesus. And I want you to set an alarm so that if you forget about it, if life gets busy and you forget about it, 30 minutes ahead of your time with Jesus, it's going to show up on your computer screen. It's going to show up on your phone. Time with Jesus. Oh, yeah, I remember I've got to spend time with Jesus. You know what? We set appointments for everything in life, don't we? We set an appointment to get our hair cut. We set an appointment to get our car fixed. We set an appointment to go to the doctor's office. So when I know that I have that appointment, especially if it's with my car, I know that I'm going to have to go there, and I have this block of time where I'm not going to be able to do anything else. I'm going to sit there, and I'm going to wait for my car to be done. So I know that time is devoted to the car. Well, if I can do that for my car, how much more could I do that with my walk with Jesus, right? To set that time aside, to know that nothing else is going to get in the way. The doctor's office even has a creative way of reminding me of the importance of keeping that appointment. I'm not sure about your doctor's offices, but I know some of the ones that I've been to in the past is when I set an appointment and they put it on their calendar and everything, a day before, I will get a text message on my phone, right? How many of you get text messages the day before, right? You get a text message, and it says, don't forget about your appointment tomorrow. We're looking forward to you coming. And, by the way, if you miss your appointment and don't tell us, we love you, but we're going to charge you $25 on your next bill, right? Why? Because their appointment time is very important. And so they want to encourage me to place a high priority on making that appointment. Because if I don't make that appointment, there was no way for them to schedule somebody else in that appointment if I'm not there. So they encourage us by a financial aspect of your bill. If you use a credit card in life, and if you don't make your payment at the end of the month, or maybe you're late on that payment, what are they going to do? They're going to charge you a late fee. They're going to charge you an extra interest fee. There's a financial price to pay if we miss the doctor's office visit, if we miss our credit card payment. Now, there may not be a financial price that we pay if we miss our time with the Lord, but there's definitely a spiritual price. There's a price that you pay over and over again if you miss that time with the Lord. Here's how it works at my house, at our house. If I'm late coming home, we have a certain rhythm of life, and if I'm late coming home, it will make Carla concerned. Now, this actually happened this past week. I was up here getting ready for the 2 services, and there was a lot to do, a lot of details to cover. And so I was working on something in my office quite a bit later than what I normally do, about an hour to an hour and a half. And so at some point during that time, Carla sent me a text message, and she said, "Hey, are you okay?" And the first thing that did is made me feel good because she was missing me at the house. I said, "Yeah, babe, I'm working on some things. I shouldn't be too much longer. I'll be home in a little while. Love you, bye." And so sure enough, I finished that and I went home. But if that began to happen, day after day after day, Carla would have every reason to be concerned about me. That would begin to put a strain in our relationship if I was valuing my work over the time that I spend with her. And I just wonder if Jesus could be the same way. If in that time that we should be spending with him, if we miss it on one day, if miss it on another day, I wonder if Jesus would send us a text message from his heavenly phone and say, "Hey, are you okay? I missed you. I'll be here, sitting in the same chair. I'll be here right outside the door. I'll be here." Do we disappoint the Lord when we don't show up with him? Because I think just as much as we should have our time with him, he longs for time with you. The Bible says that he rejoices over your life. And in that moment when you come to him and you've blocked everything else out and you've taken that time to come with him, I don't think there's any greater time in the world for Jesus than to spend that time with you. But time can be encroached upon, right? You have to set an appointment, but you have to make a decision before the decision to keep the appointment. Now, one of the rhythms that we have at our staff here is we pray every morning together from 8:30 until 9 o'clock, right here in the auditorium. We pray over the prayer needs. We come and we pick them up, we anoint them and pray over them for about a half an hour. And there are a lot of wonderful organizations in town, especially ministerial associations and things like that, that they'll send out text messages and emails and say, "Hey, we want you to come to this breakfast. Hey, we want you to come and speak at this event." And I get all kind of requests for everything, and I politely decline. Now, none of those are bad things. They're good things. But because my priority is right here, I've already made a decision before the decision had to be made. And so I politely decline, and I say, "Hey, no, thank you for the invitation. Maybe we can get together later in the day or something like that. But I have an appointment that I can't miss." And that appointment that I can't miss is prayer with our staff. There will be all kinds of things that want to encroach on your time. Another appointment that I've made is a Saturday night appointment, and that is at home. Because Sunday morning is coming, and Sunday morning is always a big day. It's obviously the biggest day of the week for us here. I typically don't do anything on Saturday nights, with rare exception. But on Saturday nights, I'll get invitations. "Hey, you want to go to the ball game? You want to go out to eat?" And all of it's good. But because I've made a decision before my decision, that time is already accounted for. No, I'm sorry, I have an appointment that I can't miss. If we do that with our time with the Lord, it will be able to let us get into that place where the Lord wants us to be. First thing is have a certain time. Second thing is have a certain place. Have a place. Back in Mark, it says, very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, he left his house, and he went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Jesus had a specific place where he would go and spend his time alone. Here's my request of you and my desire for your heart, your life, is to have a place somewhere where you can be alone with the Lord. If you have young kids, it might have to be early in the morning before they start waking up. Right now, I have a couple of different places. My first place where I wake up with in the mornings is at the house, and I have an office there at the house, and it's at my desk. And I have my computer there and a small speaker where I listen to music, and my Bible is there and a notepad. I always have those three things: music, my Bible, and a notepad. Those are just kind of standard. Because as I'm reading the scriptures, I want to know that I have something to write with, and listening to music. And so there's a place that I have. A second place that I have, I've already mentioned to you. It's right here. So I have this place on the mornings, and all those mornings start right here, kneeling over this altar. Kneeling for you to say, Lord, be with our congregation today. God, watch over them. God, bless them. God, keep them. God, watch over the children, whether they live with them or whether they're a far distance away. God, watch over the people of Stone Edge today. There's a place. I want to encourage you, find that place, wherever it is. Carve it out. I remember over the years of different places where Carla and I have moved and lived in ministry. There have been very significant places for me. I have a vivid memory of a beige couch when we lived overseas. And every morning, before the day got going and the days were crazy and traffic was nuts and loud, and some mornings were quite a respite from all of that. So as we would sit there, or as I would sit there, I remember putting my earphones on, because even at 5 o'clock in the morning when you live overseas, there's Hindu temples that they're beginning their worship, and bells are ringing, and just down the road was the Islamic mosque, and the call to prayer at 5 a.m. would go off in the city where we lived. And so at times I would put my earphones on to listen to my worship music. And even though I prayed for those people that we would then engage with a little bit later in the day, there was that quiet time when I would sit in that couch and I would have my Bible on the stand right beside me, a cup of coffee in my hand. What's your place? What is your place? Where you spend that time with the Lord every day. Earlier in the Bible, there was a very, very special place that God specially created for the people of Israel. We know that the people of Israel were slaves for many years in Egypt, and as God laid upon Moses the mantle of authority to lead them out of their captivity, God gave them a place called a tabernacle. It was a mobile place of worship, but wherever it was, they would stop, they would erect the tabernacle, and they would place their encampments all the way around the tabernacle, and that was their place to worship. And then as God would move them from one place to another, they would break down the tabernacle, put it inside containers, and move out. And then as they would stop, they would rebuild that tabernacle, put it back together again, but there was always a place. And in John chapter 1 and verse 14, beautiful words from the Apostle John that says these words, "The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among you." That word dwelling in the Greek is the same word back over in the Hebrew that says tabernacled. It's the same word that pointed all the way back to the book of Exodus that said, the creator of the universe now no longer lives in that tabernacle. He lives in your tabernacle, this thing right here, with you. And so all the more important reason for us to get this place into a place where we can focus and worship the God that created us. The last thing that I want to leave you this morning, not only have a time, not only have a place, but have a plan. What are you going to do when you spend your time with the Lord? Here's how I would ask you to unpack your plan, basically around those three things that I mentioned earlier, around the Bible, around prayer, and around worship. For me, it's inverted. Worship comes first. So my rhythm, my daily rhythm, is when I get up and get all the sleepy out of my eyes and get myself ready. Coffee's already brewed because I put the timer on the coffee pot the night before. It's ready, so I go in and grab a cup of coffee and I make my way into my office. The first thing I do is I plug my computer into my speaker, and I've got about 5 or 6 different Spotify playlists. that I listen to. It depends on the mood of the morning. If I'm in a solemn mood, a quiet mood, I'll listen to the piano music, much like what Pastor Brian will play right now. If my heart's light and in a festive mood, I've got very fast music that I'll listen to. But in the very beginning of my time, I'll just sit there quietly. Because one of the things that we can do in our relationship with the Lord is we tend to think that we have to be the one talking all the time, right? God bless this, God bless that, God do that, please. And we're talking. But there are times when I think that the Lord just says, shh, shh, let me speak. Let me speak. And so when I begin my daily rhythm in the morning, it's a shh. It's quiet. The music is playing. I just sit there. I normally just cross my arms and lay my head back on the back of the chair. And say, Lord, just speak to me. Just speak to me. Do inside of me everything that you need to do. God, help me to be the best husband I can be. God, help me to be the best leader, the best pastor of this church I can be, because, God, they deserve the best. These are awesome people. And so the first few moments of my time are just quiet, listening. From there, I'll move into a time of reading the Bible. Many times I'll read through the Bible every year, and so I'll read that portion of the Bible for the day. Sometimes I'll read through the Psalms, and other times I'll look into Bible characters and I'll study characters, or I'll study specific stories in the Bible. God, what were you trying to do there? Other times I'll look through the Bible and I'll try to find where Jesus was all the way through the Bible, Genesis to Revelation. Where are you, Lord? What are you saying in this book? What makes 1 Samuel different than 1 Chronicles? God, what are you doing? And then as I do that, I ask the question inside those, God, what are you saying to me? What are you saying? Pastor Brian said about Jehoshaphat. When I read that story, God, what are you saying to me? Are you telling me that worship needs to be out front? What are you saying to me? Spend that time in the Word. The next season, I'll close my Bible and then I'll just spend some time in prayer. In the very beginnings of the morning, I'll be honest with you, my prayers are mostly focused on Carla and the kids and our extended family. I have 7 different prayer guides that I use, one every day of the week, and that's just my personality. That's just the way I'm wired. And so there's different things that I pray for in different times, and sometimes there's seasons where I'll write things in on my prayer guides. But there's 7 different ways that I pray for Carla. 7 different ways that I pray for my children. Every day something is different, and now that they've grown and gotten married, I bring their spouses into that. Pray for them. Pray for their spouses, all the different ways that I can pray for them. And then I turn my attention towards you. That's mostly when I make it here to the church. Different things, 7 different things I pray for you every day of the week that God would do in your life. Because part of the role of what the pastor feels is a mantle that we carry you in our hearts. So when I see your prayer requests, those are very personal to me because you've taken the time, and cards are in the back of your seats. If you ever want us to pray about something, just bring it up here, or take it to Connection Center, but those are very personal to us. So there's times when we just do nothing but spend time, and there's a time in my season of spending time with the Lord that I just do nothing but pray for you, asking God to watch over you every day of the week. So when you move into your time with the Lord, have a plan for it. If you don't know where to start in prayer, maybe prayer is something that you've struggled with. Maybe it's something that you've not felt comfortable doing. You've not known what to say, or maybe you've even been a Christian for a long time and you still struggle with your prayer life. Just take some of the prayers in the Bible and just walk yourself through them. Start with the Lord's Prayer. I've talked a lot about the Lord's Prayer on Wednesday nights and then back in April. I believe it is an amazing rhythm to get you into a life of prayer. Our Father in heaven, holy, holy is your name. It's a moment when you step back and you recognize your relationship with your Heavenly Father. And you recognize and you give Him the worship that He deserves. Your kingdom come, Jesus. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. In that moment, that's a prayer of agreement that you're saying, God, your agenda first. Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. That's the second line of the prayer. God, your kingdom in my life. Give us this day our daily bread. It's a moment when you recognize that you can give all your requests to God and that you are completely dependent upon Him for everything that He gives you. Forgive us as we forgive those who have sinned against us. It's a moment of confession. We all need to confess, right? There's stuff that comes in, that creeps in, that shouldn't be there. Sinful attitudes, sinful things that we do that we know we shouldn't do. God, forgive us. And forgive those that have offended me. Forgive those that have hurt me. Lord, do not let us yield to temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. That's a prayer of protection and a prayer of spiritual warfare. God, deliver us. And then at the end, for yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. That's a prayer of faith. That's a prayer of thanksgiving, recognizing that He is above all things as you come to Him. If prayer is a difficult thing for you, just start with the Lord's Prayer. Just start there. Say that to yourself over and over again. There's a few other prayers that are going to be on the screen behind me in just a second. If you don't know where to pray, just take a snapshot on your phone of all these different prayers that you can go through and just begin to memorize them and learn them and pray those over your life. Have a plan for your prayer life. Your daily rhythm will determine how full your spiritual fuel tank is. Did you miss it? Did you miss the ones up there? Just put that one back up there for a second. Some of you had your phones out. You put them down too quick. Sorry. Just take these and pray over them. They'll help you build your time of prayer when you spend time with the Lord every day. But here's my question to you. How is your fuel gauge? On most fuel gauges, if your car is anything like my car, when the fuel gauge gets to be too low, there's a little light that comes on that tells you that your fuel is getting low and you need to stop. You need to refuel. How's your fuel level? Is your yellow light showing? Let me ask you another question. Have you been driving for a while and your yellow light on? You know good and well that when the light comes on, it's getting low, but you know that you've been driving for a while with your yellow light on, and you know that at any moment, your fuel tank could run dry. And then what are you going to do? You're going to be at that red light, and your car's going to go dead, and all the cars behind you are going to start honking their horn at you, and it's not going to be a lot of fun. You're going to have to call a friend, and you can say, hey, can you come and get me? Or you're going to have to call a towing service, and they're going to charge you a lot to come and take your car somewhere just so you can get gas, and all that stuff has a price. How's your fuel gauge? As we get back into life, as we get back into the rhythms of life, as you check the dashboards of your life, how's your fuel gauge? Is it on empty? Is it half full? Is it completely full? This morning, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and bow your heads. In just a moment, we're going to begin to worship the Lord together as we bring the service to a close. But if you're here this morning and you say, Pastor, that's me this morning. I feel like my fuel gauge is, the yellow light is on. It's almost empty. I know I need to stop, but I haven't. Pastor, my fuel gauge light is really low this morning. And if that's you this morning, and your fuel gauge is low, I simply want to have a word of prayer with you before we leave this place. If that's you this morning, you would raise your hand high enough where I could see it. Pastor, my fuel gauge is really low. All over, all over. Pastor, my fuel gauge is really low this morning. Anybody else? Just a moment. If you've raised your hand, you can put it down. My fuel gauge is really low. I'm going to ask everybody in the room, if you will, to stand right where you are. Just stand up. And at this time, I'd like to ask our altar team if you guys would come to the front. One of the most significant things that we do here on Sunday morning is to pray with people, is to agree with people over the situations in their life. And if you're here this morning and you say, Pastor, that was me. That's my fuel gauge is low. I need somebody to pray with me. In just a moment, we're going to begin to worship. And I'm going to ask that you would step out from your chair and let one of these members of our prayer team just hold your hand and just pray with you that God would help you. Then you'll go back to our notes and you'll begin to plan and prepare for your days ahead. Or maybe you're here this morning and you didn't raise your hand. For some reason or another, you just kind of kept your hand in your lap. That's okay. But if you're here this morning and your fuel gauge is low, you want somebody to engage you with prayer today, I encourage you, when we begin to sing, step out from where you are and let somebody pray with you this morning. Let's worship the Lord together.
Jesus at the center of it all. Jesus at the center of it all. From beginning to the end, He will always be. It's always been you, Jesus.
receive this blessing from the Lord this morning out of the book of Numbers, chapter 6. Aaron says over the people, he says, may the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord smile on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord show you his favor and give you his peace. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Have a beautiful day. We'll see you in church Wednesday night. God bless you.